let's talk about advertisement exploits. How to exploit a platform like Google AdSense, ADX, ezoic, money tag, ad cache. How do we exploit the system using browser automations? Now, most people ask questions like, do you think these systems can be fooled? Don't you think you will get caught? Don't you think they would ban your account? Now, I understand your concerns, but you're also asking these questions because you're not asking yourself, what does a real human being do? And how does the real traffic look? Because the thing with beating systems is that you can only beat a system when you understand how that system works. But most people don't really understand how a system works and they don't care. So what they're usually more concerned with is what they want. But the system can't give you really what you want when you want it, except you're ready to pay for it. But however, if you understand how the system works, then you can trick the system to give you what you want when you want it without paying for it. Some people call this hacking, and I cannot agree less. So, what I'm about to teach you is educational purposes only. Do not use this to exploit any advertisement platform. You do so, you face the consequences. Okay, so let's talk about what a real traffic looks like. So, say you're a blogger, a big blogger, being known by lots of people, or you have a website people visit, and this website has advertisements shown on it. Now, because your content is very meaningful, you would have different people from different location coming in here with only one intention to enjoy your content or whatever article you have presented. Now, advertisement platforms knows that because they get to pay this blogger, so many other people could try to pretend that they also have lots of visitors like this genuine big blogger. And so one of the things advertisement platform looks is what real traffics look like. So how do they identify real traffic? Well, whenever traffic comes in like this. Now, one of the things platforms like Google AdSense in particular checks out for is what we call session. See, advertisement platforms are kind of, in a way, united. Now, contrary to what you think, you have seen a whole lot around this privacy war. Hearing this advertisement platform is having some form of, you know, sharing data. Sorry, sharing data with to third parties. When you ask yourself, who are these third parties? You see things like third parties or third party advertisement firms. So, in other words, you could head over to an app that has an affiliation with Google, and your habit on this app could be seen as one who currently has an interest in one kind of product or service. And when you come over to a Google platform, you get to see advertisements around that kind of product or service. So, what does it mean? It means your fingerprints have been marked because the internet might look free, but you're the product. So, these platforms like Google, they offer you these Google searches and they pay these bloggers from people who pay them to advertise. And because these people want specific targeting of this audience, these people can fund Google enough to have treaties that would give them the rights that you consented to monitor and spoof on you. So, in other words, real traffic, real audience, there are people who have section. Now, session are basically what we would usually call cookies and local storage. Browser history, of course, as well. These are what the system has known about you. Now, this is where there's a problem. The problem is that when amateur browser automators try to do this, they make one very big problem. Now, They feel like I want to generate thousands of traffic, but I do not want to make myself get caught. So, because I don't want to get caught, I'm going to be coming up on no session. That means for each time I visit a particular blog, I would always be seen as a new visitor. Now, this might really sound nice. I mean, doing this gives you thousands of views. But in real scenarios, especially if this is not an adult content platform, human beings use a browser that they use repeatedly. And so these advertisement platforms, one of their key check is to check if you have a section that can tell you use this particular browser frequently. But now, this is where there's a problem. If you don't have that section, and most of that traffic coming into that blog has no section, then you risk putting that blog on ads limit. Now let's take a step backward. Let's assume you're able to use OKEkbot. Now, the OKEkbot has this feature by default. So instead of having to, code a project from scratch yourself, on the OKEkbot, you could use the software, create lots of browsers, and then these browsers would all have their own sections. Now it now makes perfect sense. The OKEkbot creates a lot of Google Chrome profiles, and each of these browsers have different sections. Okay, now it simply means I could keep visiting my blog and keep earning, but not so fast. Now, the second thing these platforms check, these advertisement platforms, the second thing they check is what we call the IP location. So let me give you an example. Now, let's assume you are still that blogger, or you have a website people, reach out to consume good content. Now, imagine you have so many people you can identify, so many of them, with their browser session, all coming in here. But there's only one thing they all have in common. They have either IP addresses that are questionable, or they use singular IPs. So what does this mean? Let me explain. On a real scenario, on a real blog, you have visitors from different locations. And each of these visitors, they come in with different type of cell carriers. And so what happens? As they all engage on your blog, your advertisement platform is recording different IP addresses on your particular site. Now, the next second step on beating advertisement platforms is to not just go get IPs, but get IPs that have no questionable record. What do I mean by questionable record? Now, specifically, there are majorly three kind of proxies. Majorly, we have the residential proxy. This is the kind of proxy you get from real users in real places. For instance, the IP you get when you use a Starlink, it's a residential proxy or residential IP. Now, we have the static. The static proxy are like basically that of businesses. You remember when we had cyber cafes, when a business will be given one IP and all the computers in that particular business uses that IP? Correct. That is what is happening over here. Now, you don't want to use an IP like this for Google AdSense. Now, we also have the mobile proxy, which is the one that comes in from your cell carrier like AT&T, Verizon, MTN, Airtel, the list continues. Now, me, for example, I love going for the $2,200 package. Why? Unlimited. Now, what do I mean by unlimited? when you look at it over here, usually, because residential proxies are usually the best, they are also quite expensive. And so if I should decide to get unlimited IP a day, I pay $252. Now, I either go with this option or I go with the option where I get to pay per gig. Now, as this tutorial goes on, I'm going to show you why you should never buy the gig. You're better off looking for a group of people who have purchased the unlimited bandwidth and merge up with them. On the episode 2, I'm going to walk you through how to get this. As a matter of fact, I am about purchasing one now. I have funded my account. So currently I have close to 1,800. So I have about 1,160 USDT and about $700 dollars of BTC. So I'm going to be funding more. I'm going to fund my accounts more so I can purchase the unlimited bandwidth. And once I do so, on the next tutorial, I will show you how to set this all up. Now remember, this tutorial is for educational purposes only.